Okay, so I guess this would be 101.2. I hit the stop button instead of the flip around. Anyway, so there's my museum, bunch of old memories and dreams. I was just telling you another video about Ollie and Emma in the morning, and you can read the story that I publicly posted up on rwnb.com/Ollie and Emma. So I really want to, let's see if I can push the right button. I really would like to do a whole host of radio dramas, and you know, even before the MCU was a thing, maybe it was being planned on, worked on, whatever, but before the public really knew about it, I thought, wouldn't it be cool to make this like really multi-part movie? And this was before Fast and Furious and whatnot. I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have this long, I called it, you know, there's the trilogy, which means three parts. Well, I thought, what about a scoreology or 20 parts? Now, that's been kind of overdone, but you know, I've got this whole extended universe kind of going around this jovial concept. One of the flea markets I tried to open, I mean, it's really the same flea market that I'm just looking for a location. And one of the earlier locations that I was thinking about trying to do it at, there was a pond on the property, and I was thinking about taking the name from the book Lake Jovial. And actually prior to that, I thought, you know, well, we're in Kansas, wouldn't it be fun to call it, you know, the Wizard of Oz, you know, Emerald City and something like that. I decided not to, because the problem with the whole copyright laws and trademarks is, while the original book, and I may have these years off, I think the book was written in 23 and the movie was made in 1923 and 1939, and Warner Brothers still holds rights to the movie. And the problem is, when people think of the Wizard of Oz and Oz, they think of, you know, those characters from the movie. So it would be hard to market without getting permission. And so I thought, well, why not come up with my own idea? And part of my idea of developing different stories was that, you know, the whole, what I call the jovial dynamic universe, my answer to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or the DC Extended Universe. So the concept of Jovial Springs is what I decided to name it instead of Oz. And I figured I would write stories prior to the Jovial Springs story and kind of start building the whole universe of characters. I'm going to tell you about some of those stories here in a few minutes, but so anyways, so the and I thought, you know, Jovial Springs, I'd have all these lands, and then, you know, maybe people could help me write the story around visiting this water park. You know, Wisconsin Dells, halfway between Minneapolis and Chicago. I would love to do my own, you know, I've got a lot of ideas. I don't have the type of money, and honestly, I'll probably never have the type of money to do even a quarter of the type of things that I would like to do, but it's fun to dream, if nothing else, and maybe I'll pass it on. I don't have my own children, but nephews, nieces, other kids that I know, maybe I'll pass the dream on to somebody. Maybe I'll encourage somebody else through things like YouTube or Facebook posts or whatever. I don't know. But it's still a real business that I'd like to pursue. But so Jovial is like a magical time, lost in time type of civilization. It would be akin to the land of Oz, or Alice in Wonderland, or the land of Narnia in the Chronicles of Narnia, or any other fictional universe that may exist. And the thought is, different times and places, this portal takes people, and there's this whole story. And Rennie, RWENI, that was actually a name I came up with when I was possibly going to sell the RWNB.com domain, but what the people wanted to give me just wasn't enough. So rich with national blessing, red, white, and blue. Well, Rennie is rich with entertainment and information as a company. But since I never sold the RWNB name, I still got Rennie.com, and I thought, well, what will I do with Rennie? Well, Rennie is, in this Jovial story, the king of hospitality. So I got a whole kind of story about this land and these people who live in it, and I don't got a lot of details worked out because, frankly, I'm not a detailed-oriented writer. I think of the big picture, and then I would love, like with the flea market, I would love to find a lot of vendors and help them out and help other people out. You know, the franchise model, the getting other people going in business model is what I'd like to do. Even, when I had the sub shop, my idea was to franchise it out, and I was going to try and do it in such a way to help more people, individuals, get a start and make success. Because I think scripturally, helping people and helping people get into their own business. Now, that's not necessarily a commandment or anything you gotta do to be saved, so don't get me wrong. I'm just thinking when, about how you're supposed to love people and help each other and those type of things, and how the apostles, they were a very communal life at first. I think we need to get more back to that. And one of the stories related to Oli and Emma is Johanna. Now, I don't remember if Johanna was supposed to be the sister of Oli. I'm pretty sure that was the case. Anyways, sometimes the details get a little lost. But anyways, so I figured, what if I had a story about them living in Idaho and buying an old mansion that had a lot of space, and they renovated it, and they had a bunch of family members and even some friends living in it and having some kind of communal life. Nothing that's, forced government top down, but so I was going to do a story on that, and I think I might call it Homestead Heroes. I played with a few different names. There was another story that I thought about doing, like Family Matters. I thought about Of Relative Value, and I thought about maybe using that for the name of the Homestead Heroes program. But anyways, so this whole Jovial kingdom in Lake Jovial in the middle of Holy Cow, Minnesota, is one of those portals that come up. And my theme park would have, part of it would be, there'd be a baptism, there'd be like John in the wilderness and kind of a medieval church, and I would make it fun and interesting and not preachy and religious, but try and get good things mixed in with otherwise potentially bad things. So, and then I've told you on a previous video about Middle Path Kingdom. That would be even more medieval, back in, like the Dark Ages, the 1100s or whatever. And that would be kind of connected. There's another story that I've recently created called Roots of the Sugar Plum. And, there's talk in the play, the opera, the Sugar Plum Fairy in the ballet, But what is a Sugar Plum Fairy? Who is a Sugar Plum Fairy? And I really haven't seen much done on that, so I thought about doing a show. I do have that, and I think I've posted that online somewhere, maybe Facebook, whatever. I'm probably going to read that to you sometime too. I'm not sure how that's going to interact, but I got a whole story based on that. So part of the whole Holy Cow universe, I've also got Better Ask Bobbi. Lately there's been a lot of woke stuff, and I think it's gone to an unhealthy degree. But, growing up in the 80s and 90s, I saw how, there's a PSAs about treating people right. Don't be racist, don't be sexist, and those dramatized versions of, people being mistreated. And I've always thought that, women are our equals. They're equally human beings, and the damsel in distress is maybe an outdated thing. It's also I thought about, having good female role models, and, unlike what the current woke culture is doing, there's nothing wrong with women being women. Not trying to redefine them or anything, just have good stories that have women as their main character. Better Ask Bobbi. Teenage/20-something takes over running her dad's gas station. Originally it was her grandpa's. Her grandpa had planned to pass it on to her dad, who was going to pass it on to her. But her dad and her mom died, and there's this whole box elder conspiracy. And yeah, there's these box elder bugs that exist, but I'm kind of taking the name and running with it a different direction. So Better Ask Bobbi. Her grandpa helps raise her, and there's kind of a good and bad connection, because this happens in Sault, Missouri, a fictional city along Route 66. And further up on Route 66, there's another show called The Eve's Inn. And another girl about the same age as Bobbi is raised by her grandparents. But that's because her parents are these jet setters, living the fancy life and making mistakes. And further up, back in Chicago, there's a place called the Kaleidoscope Club. And I spell it a little different for branding purposes, and I also think it just looks better. Me and English don't always get along, don't you know? But so part of the whole Ole and Emma story, I've got like a kind of a prequel where I call it Hard Times Bring Heart. And I thought about maybe the Great Depression era, maybe just before, just after, how, the 80-year cycle that's talked about, where, people, how is it, that bad men bring hard times bring good men bring good times, and there's basically a cycle. Every 80 years, basically about every generation, every 4 generations, there's a winter, a spring, a summer, a fall, a winter. And so my thought with this is, how people got through the Great Depression, and how, they stuck together, and kind of the homestead heroes, plus that would kind of help guide people in a better way of living. And, when I create programs, radio dramas is what I'm trying to focus on. I want them to be family friendly, but I also want them to be inspirational and tell a story and whatnot. So, well, I've got another one, Cold Day in Minnesota, and kind of a halfway between Ole and Emma in the morning and Cold Day in Minnesota, which is when Hannah is an adult and has children of her own. And then I got another one that's Great Grand Future. Kind of, if you make the right choices, life is going to get better. You can help people, and maybe you can't help everybody, but you can help your children and your grandchildren. That's kind of where I'm going with the whole Ole and Emma Holy Cow series. And the Jovial Springs kind of ties in more of a fantasy world, and the Sugar Plum Fairies, kind of sort of the superhero aspect of it. I've got a show about space. And my show, if you ever seen the show Firefly, it would be more like Firefly than Star Trek, because Star Trek has all these alien races. And, from a biblical perspective, the Bible doesn't talk about aliens. And some Christians, myself included, believe aliens are probably just demons. The devil tries to use things like ghosts and aliens and whatever, anything he can do to confuse people about what is right and what is true, get people away from God and the Bible, he'll do. Now, if there are actually aliens that actually exist, well, God made those too, and I don't think we should worship them or anything, and I don't know if they need salvation the way we do. The Bible doesn't talk about that. So, until the aliens come out and actually prove they exist, I'm going to assume they don't, and that's something that we can't control either which way. So my world would be about human exploration. It'd be kind of maybe kind of Star Trek Enterprise, the Captain Archer, the Scott Bakula was the captain of the first Enterprise. That the show. Oh, this gets into my whole 8th network thing. I've talked about this a little. There used to be the 3 networks: ABC, CBS, NBC, and even really NBC was the first network. CBS was the second, ABC was the third, and CBS struggled to get stations, and ABC struggled to get stations. Later, Fox struggled to get stations, and so Deep Space Nine was from about, I think, like 2000 to 2006 or so on the UPN network. And it was only 4 seasons, I believe, so whatever the exact years were, but it was supposed to take place 100 years before the original series. Or was it 100 years before the original series? 200, whatever. Time, I just don't know off the top of my head. But so my story is, how do humans get into space? And like I say, kind of like Firefly, but it'd be my own version. And so I have a show called Prairie Moon, and it would be basically kind of a western in space. And then there'd be another show that'd be Pioneer Planet. That'd be like 100 years later. We'd still be struggling to get established into space, so it wouldn't be like a way far futuristic thing where everybody had zappers and laser guns and all these weird devices. It would be we went to other planets, we're expanding, there's some technology, but there is a limit to what we could bring with. So that's some of the story that I'm working on. There's a show called Peaceland, where it's kind of time travel, space mystery, kind of a cop show of sorts. And the concept of that is, people removed from time, and they're actually in the future. They go back and they're trying to help other civilizations, other planets. So they're aliens, but they're really humans. And I got another show kind of related to that called Cuvanzi. So I've got some kind of medieval and some old westy type of stuff, and got some space futuristic stuff. And I've got mostly I'm focused on hour-long dramas for RWNB and what I call ear-opening radio, which is the drama portion of the RWNB media company. So I got a lot of ideas, things I'd like to do. I just figured I'd share some of them. I want to go a little more in depth on some of the stories, and maybe create a story around Lake Christian just for the fun of it. Not necessarily part of the whole Jovial dynamic universe or anything. Maybe it will be. I don't know. Sometimes after how Disney has fallen, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe is falling apart and falling out of favor, and sometimes I wonder how much I really want some of these shows interconnected and whatnot. Anyways, so those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear your comments either on Facebook or on YouTube. And I'm going to have more Bible reading in the days to come, and some more commentaries, some more other stories. Hope you have a good day.